What you seek is not outside. It has been whispering within since the beginning. Upanishads. What if I told you the greatest technique of the ancients was hidden not because it failed, but because it worked too well? Imagine if every breath you take could bend probability, every thought could alter matter, and every emotion could command reality itself. They never wanted you to know that obedience was taught, but sovereignty was silenced. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you'll finally see the lost technique of Thoth, the one they tried to erase from history. Most people grew up thinking discipline meant sitting still, obeying rules, and following orders. But have you ever wondered why none of those classes ever taught you how to breathe with awareness? From your very first day in school, the focus was on memorizing facts, not mastering your own inner rhythm. The result? You learned how to stay quiet in a chair, but not how to quiet your mind. Isn't it strange that silence was demanded, yet the true silence inside was never explained? The truth is, the things left out are more revealing than what was included. You were never shown how a single breath can steady your nerves in seconds, or how your thoughts are like invisible hands shaping every experience. And emotions, they're not random storms, they're currents of vibration, charged waves guiding where your energy flows. If this was missing from your childhood, do you think it was an accident or by design? Imagine this. When a child instinctively sings, moves, or breathes deeply, they're already tuning into energy. But eventually they're told to stop fidgeting or focus on the work, as if presence meant ignoring the body's signals. Slowly, obedience to outer systems replaced listening to inner wisdom. And here's the kicker: an individual who knows their energy can't be easily controlled. So why would the system ever want to encourage that? Let's try something together. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a count of 3, then release slowly through your mouth. Notice how even that tiny shift creates space, as if you just opened a window inside your chest. That was 10 seconds of alignment, and if one breath feels like this, what do you think a lifetime of conscious breath could unlock? And if one practice was hidden from you, how many others might also be? Conditioning was never neutral. It was designed to make obedience feel natural, to prioritize external approval over inner sovereignty, to reward conformity over curiosity. You learned equations and grammar, but not how to align thought, breath, and emotion into a force. Doesn't it make you wonder why the ancients treated these things as sacred sciences while modern life calls them soft skills? And that's where the mystery deepens. Because long before classrooms and timetables, entire civilizations built their knowledge around these hidden currents. They encoded the truth not in school books, but in myths, symbols, and timeless stories, leaving a trail of wisdom for anyone ready to remember. Which brings us to the figure who became their messenger, the one the Greeks called Hermes Trismegistus, but Egypt knew simply as Thoth. Are you ready to meet him? Thoth isn't just a figure carved on temple walls. He's the archetype of wisdom itself, the one who taught that reality could be read like a book if you knew the language of symbols. The Greeks later called him Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great, because his teachings spanned the physical, mental, and spiritual worlds. Imagine someone who wasn't trying to be worshipped, but rather to hand you the keys of the universe. Doesn't that already feel different from what religion later became? Instead of plain instructions, he hid truths inside myths and parables. Why? Because power in the wrong hands becomes manipulation. So knowledge had to be encrypted, like sacred fire wrapped in story. Think about the Emerald Tablets or the Kybalion written centuries later. They're not bedtime tales, they're blueprints encoded in metaphor. Have you noticed how the most powerful teachings are often the ones that sound simple, but keep unfolding the deeper you look? The purpose wasn't worship, it was alignment. For Thoth, the universe was mental, shaped not by brute matter, but by consciousness itself. That means thought isn't a byproduct of the brain, it's the architect of reality. And once you see this, you stop asking, does my thought matter? And start asking, how could it not? The question isn't if you're shaping reality, but how consciously you're doing it. Can you see the shift? Here's a small experiment. Close your eyes for a moment and picture a spiral of golden light rising through your spine. With each breath, see it expand around you, as if your body were a temple lit from within. Stay with it for 3 breaths. That tiny act is Hermetic science in motion, energy shaped by mind, carried by breath, and felt in the body. If this much happens in half a minute, what might be possible with daily practice? Now, if you're still here, it's because something inside knows this isn't just history, it's a memory. That's why I'll ask you to hit subscribe right now, not as a favor, but as a way of keeping this current alive. Because the step that almost no one reveals, the actual mechanics behind how thoughts imprint on matter, is coming up soon, and you won't want to miss it. Isn't it worth staying for what the world tried so hard to bury? The ancients knew they couldn't hand out power freely, so they hid it in story, geometry, and ritual. But once you realize every myth is a mirror, the texts stop being old and start being alive, whispering directly to you. And if the universe is truly mental, then it begs the question, where does the mind fit in the grand architecture of existence? If you've ever wondered why some people seem to bend life in their favor, while others feel stuck, the answer isn't luck, it's code. Not digital code, but mental blueprints that the mind projects into reality. Consciousness is the root, not matter, and what you think becomes the pattern the world follows. The ancients didn't see thought as fluff, they saw it as frequency. And if frequency is the building block, doesn't that make your mind the true architect? There's a trinity at play that makes this clear. Thought is the frequency, intention is the force, and emotion is the carrier wave. Picture it like a radio station. The thought sets the channel, the intention pushes the signal, and the emotion carries it across distance. Ever noticed how a plan backed with excitement moves faster than one made half-heartedly? That's not coincidence. That's the transmission system in action. What signal are you broadcasting right now? Here's the thing. Most people try to change their lives by tweaking outer circumstances. But the ancients flipped it. They knew matter bends to consciousness, not the other way around. It's like trying to change a reflection in a mirror without moving your own body. It doesn't work. And the more you realize this, the less you chase, and the more you align. Isn't it time to stop rearranging mirrors and start adjusting the source? Try this quick practice. Think of a goal you've been carrying, something small but real. Now, instead of just thinking about it, breathe into it as if the breath itself was fueling it. Imagine your chest glowing brighter with each inhale, and on the exhale, see that glow ripple outward into your environment. This isn't fantasy, it's mechanics. You just linked thought, intention, and emotion into a coherent signal. What might happen if you repeated this daily? And if you're still with me, it means you're serious about mastering more than just ideas. You want the practice. So save this video right now, because the next section will show how science has been quietly confirming what Hermetic wisdom declared thousands of years ago. From physics labs to sound experiments, modern data is finally catching up. Don't you want to see how the invisible is being measured? Because once you realize the mind is source code, you stop asking whether reality is mental and start asking how deep that rabbit hole goes. If thoughts, emotions, and breath act as mechanics, not metaphors, then science should reveal the fingerprints, right? So let's step into the experiments that prove what Thoth was pointing to all along. For centuries, the idea that thought shapes reality was dismissed as mystical poetry. But then came the double-slit experiment, and suddenly physics confirmed that observation itself alters outcomes. In plain English, the act of looking changes the result. That means consciousness isn't passive, it's a player in the game. Isn't it wild that what ancient temples whispered is now being echoed in modern labs? Another clue comes from cymatics, where sound vibrations scatter sand into geometric patterns. Every tone creates a unique design, as if frequency is sculpting matter right in front of your eyes. Now imagine your emotions and thoughts as vibrations. If sound alone can draw mandalas in dust, what do you think a steady emotional frequency does to your life? Could chaos inside be the reason chaos repeats outside? Biofield research takes it even further. Sensitive instruments now detect shifts in the electromagnetic field around the body based on thoughts and feelings. Love and gratitude expand coherence. Anger and fear scatter it. Think of yourself like a tuning fork. When you're aligned, you resonate and attract. When you're off-key, you distort and repel. Doesn't that explain why some days everything clicks and others everything crashes? Here's a moment to try. Place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and breathe slowly 3 times. As you inhale, think of someone you genuinely appreciate. Notice how the body relaxes, how the rhythm steadies. You just shifted your measurable field, no lab coat required. And if you're feeling the difference already, don't you want to keep learning how far this can go? That's why I'd tell you to like this video right now. It's not for me. It's to keep your own algorithm tuned. When you engage, you tell the system, more of this. And that's exactly how coherence grows, through consistent choices. The next step, the one almost no one talks about, is how to turn this science and wisdom into a living technique. Don't you think it's time to see how the ancients actually practiced it? Because the proof is clear. Ancient wisdom and modern science aren't enemies, they're mirrors. But mirrors only show potential. They don't apply it for you. To experience the transformation, you need the steps, the practice, the ritual. So, are you ready to learn the technique that aligns silence, intention, and breath into one unstoppable current? Now comes the piece most people never hear about. The ancients didn't just talk about energy, they practiced it. The first step is silence and coherence, but not the empty kind where you're bored. This is tuning silence, where your breath, body, and mind click into alignment like strings of an instrument. Think of it less as doing nothing and more as fine-tuning. What if stillness was the secret key all along? The second step is intention. Not vague wishing, but focused will carried with emotional certainty. When you set an intention without emotion, it's like sending a letter without postage. It never gets delivered. But when thought and feeling unite, the message becomes undeniable. Haven't you noticed how even the smallest goals manifest faster when you're excited and sure compared to when you're just hoping? Step 3 brings breath and voice. Breath isn't just air, it modulates energy. And when breath becomes sound, whether a chant, a hum, or even a whispered phrase, it projects that energy outward. Sound waves carry intention into space like ripples in water. Think of ancient chants not as superstition, but as acoustics applied to spirit. Doesn't it make sense that your voice can broadcast more than words? Let's try a micro practice right now. Inhale slowly through your nose, hold the breath in your chest, and then release it as a soft hum, like the faint vibration of a string. Feel how your whole body resonates for a moment. That's not imagination, it's physics meeting consciousness. If one hum shifts your state this quickly, what would daily practice create? Wouldn't life begin to bend with you instead of against you? The effects can be surprisingly tangible. Clarity in decision-making, steadier emotions, even a sense of magnetism where opportunities seem to find you. Some describe sudden improvements in health. Others notice synchronicities, stacking one after another. The ancients would say you're not bending the world, you're bending yourself into coherence, and reality follows suit. Isn't that the kind of change you've been waiting for? And here's the beauty. This isn't locked away in temples anymore. It's right here, waiting to be practiced. But the ancients didn't stop with technique. They built entire monuments to amplify it. Those temples and sacred sites weren't just stone. They were resonators designed to magnify the very energies you just felt in your own chest. Would you like to see how architecture itself became a tool for awakening? When you walk into an ancient temple, it doesn't just feel impressive, it feels alive. That's because these structures weren't designed as tourist attractions or even just places of worship. They were energetic amplifiers. Every angle, every column, every echo of sound was tuned like an instrument to magnify the human field. Ever noticed how stepping into certain spaces instantly shifts your state of mind? That's no accident. The ancients knew geometry wasn't decoration. It was resonance. Ratios like the golden mean, angles aligned with celestial bodies, and chambers tuned for specific frequencies created living architecture. These weren't just buildings, they were machines of consciousness. Think of how music changes your mood. Then imagine walls that sing silently to your nervous system. Doesn't it make sense why they called geometry sacred? Take the pyramids as an example. Scholars still debate their purpose, but what if their real role was vibrational, not funerary? Their proportions match cosmic mathematics. Their chambers resonate like tuning forks. Imagine standing inside and feeling your breath amplified as if the stone itself were breathing with you. If one breath in silence can align you, what could happen inside a structure built to magnify it? Alchemy ties directly to this. People often think it was about turning lead into gold, but that was the metaphor. The real work was turning dense, heavy human energy into luminous consciousness. The furnace wasn't in a lab, it was the body itself. By placing yourself in sacred spaces and aligning breath, thought, and emotion, you were the alchemist, refining the self into a vessel of light. Have you ever felt that spark in your own body? Here's a simple way to taste it. Imagine your own body as a temple. As you sit, align your posture as if your spine were a pillar. Breathe evenly, as though your chest were an inner chamber. With each exhale, picture your thoughts settling like dust on ancient stone. In seconds, you've turned your own space into geometry. If you can do this in your living room, what might happen at the scale of a pyramid? But here's the twist. Knowledge like this didn't survive untouched. Over centuries, empires, religions, and modern institutions all chipped away at it, rebranding or suppressing what they couldn't control. Which begs the question, if temples were once amplifiers of sovereignty, who benefited from dismantling that knowledge. Every time truth gets too close to liberating people, history shows a pattern: suppression. Ancient mystery schools that once trained initiates in breath, vibration, and inner sovereignty were eventually replaced by rigid doctrines. Empires realized it was easier to control populations through fear and obedience than through empowerment. Isn't it telling how wisdom that once uplifted became rebranded as heresy or sin? Religion played a major role. What was once living practice, chanting, geometry, alignment, was recast as superstition. Practices that tuned the body and mind were dismissed as dangerous or even demonic. Instead of teaching that the universe is mental and consciousness is divine, people were taught that divinity was separate, far away, and accessible only through intermediaries. Who benefits when people believe they're powerless? Science, in its modern form, took the baton later. Anything connected to vibration, energy, or consciousness was labeled unproven or pseudoscience, despite experiments showing otherwise. The narrative became, if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Yet the irony is that the most groundbreaking discoveries, from quantum mechanics to biofields, echo what was dismissed. Could it be that dismissal is less about truth and more about control of the narrative? Modern suppression takes subtler forms. Education drills memorization over imagination. Media floods attention with endless distraction, making silence almost impossible. And consumerism exploits the emptiness people feel when cut off from inner power, offering products as substitutes for presence. It's a clever system. Weaken sovereignty, then sell solutions. Can you see how that cycle feeds itself endlessly? But there's another reason this suppression continues. Sovereign individuals are harder to manipulate. A person who knows how to regulate their own state, align their energy, and create consciously doesn't fall for fear tactics or hollow promises. They see through the illusion. And when enough people wake up, entire systems of control lose their grip. Isn't that the very revolution authorities fear most? Which is why remembering is so crucial. This isn't about discovering something new. It's about reclaiming what was always yours. And when that remembrance begins, it changes everything. How you breathe, how you think, how you move in the world. So let's step into that moment of remembering and awakening. What does it actually look like to return to yourself? Awakening isn't about adding more information. It's about peeling away layers of conditioning to remember what you already are. As children, we knew how to breathe deeply, feel freely, and sense the unseen currents around us. But slowly, that natural awareness was muted by rules, routines, and distractions. So awakening feels less like learning a new trick and more like remembering a song you once knew by heart. Can you feel echoes of that memory within yourself? Simple practices bring it back. Conscious breathing resets the body like a tuning fork. Presence breaks the grip of automatic thoughts. Intention sharpens focus so energy stops leaking into trivial worries. None of this requires temples or teachers. It requires remembering what your body already knows. Isn't it liberating to realize the doorway has always been right under your nose, literally with every breath? Think of awakening as switching from passive existence to conscious creation. Instead of drifting through life like a leaf in a current, you become the one steering the river. Suddenly you notice how your thoughts bend circumstances, how your emotions color interactions, how your breath anchors clarity. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Doesn't that explain why some moments feel guided, almost scripted, while others feel stuck. Try this right now. Inhale slowly and silently say to yourself, "I remember." Hold the breath. Let the word echo inside your chest, then release it gently. Notice how even a whisper of intention stirs something deeper. That's not imagination, it's memory surfacing. If one breath can bring this much clarity, how might a daily ritual transform the way you walk through the world? Awakening is contagious. When you walk into a room aligned, calm, and radiant, others feel it even if they can't explain why. Your coherence acts like a lighthouse, silently reminding others of their own. That's why even small practices ripple outward. If one person's awakening can influence many, what happens when thousands remember together? Isn't that the seed of something much larger than personal growth? And that's exactly where this leads. Because remembering on an individual level is powerful, but when it multiplies, it shifts entire systems. Imagine schools teaching breath before exams, leaders making decisions from coherence instead of fear, families living from presence instead of distraction. What would society look like if remembrance wasn't rare, but normal? One aligned person can light up a room. You felt it before. Someone walks in calm, grounded, radiant, and suddenly everyone else relaxes. That's coherence in action, and it spreads faster than words. Your breath, your intention, your presence ripple outward, changing the emotional weather around you. If one person shifts the field this much, what happens when entire groups begin to remember? Collective awakening isn't about protests or slogans, it's about resonance. Imagine hundreds breathing in coherence at the same time. Imagine families starting meals with a moment of silence, schools teaching breath before math, leaders making decisions from a calm nervous system. That's not utopia, it's simple physics. Doesn't it make sense that coherence multiplies when shared? Here's a quick glimpse. Pause right now, close your eyes, and breathe 3 times, imagining light expanding around you. Now picture thousands of people doing that with you at the same moment. You'd feel like part of a silent choir, each breath another note in a symphony. And when the song of humanity shifts, don't you think society itself starts to sound different? Control systems know this, which is why distraction is constant. Media shouts fear, marketing sells emptiness, politics stirs division. But all of that noise depends on you forgetting who you are. The moment you remember and live from coherence, you unplug from their frequency. And when enough people unplug, entire industries of fear collapse. Can you see why awakening is treated as dangerous? That's the silent revolution. No banners, no armies, no violence. Just resonance spreading like a hidden flame. The shift doesn't demand permission. It happens naturally when individuals embody sovereignty. From consumer to creator, from reacting to consciously shaping, each awakened person becomes a tuning fork. And when the chorus grows, who could possibly stop it? So here's the question. If you and I are remembering right now, what happens when thousands more join? Isn't this the collective moment Thoth's wisdom was pointing toward all along? And if awakening together shakes the old systems, what kind of society are we stepping into next? You've just seen what the ancients knew, what science is rediscovering, and what your own breath can prove in seconds. Reality bends to coherence. This isn't theory, it's practice. The only real question left is whether you'll keep drifting in distraction or finally choose to remember. Because one choice, one breath, changes everything. Apply it tonight. Before sleep, place a hand over your heart, breathe slowly, and hold one clear, thought with emotion. That single act rewires the field around you. Do it for a week and watch how life begins to align. Don't just listen, practice. Because knowledge ignored becomes another distraction. Knowledge applied becomes transformation. And if this resonated, subscribe right now, turn on the bell, and like this video so the algorithm itself keeps feeding you reminders instead of noise. Share it with someone you care about, because resonance multiplies faster when carried through connection. The more of us remembering, the harder it becomes for old systems to hold. Now I'll leave you with a question. Just one word, remember? Drop it in the comments if you feel the spark. That single word carries more power than you think, and together it becomes a silent declaration. This isn't just content, it's community, and you're part of it. And when you're ready to keep going, don't stop here. On the end screen, there's a link to the next video, another doorway, another step into the forbidden wisdom that was always meant for you. Step through it now, because the journey doesn't end. It only deepens.